Welcome back to Monday Musings, a casual conversation about culture and theology. I'm Justin Ely.
And I'm Daniel Chen. We're just a couple guys talking about some stuff.
The stuff that we're talking about today is the phrase that I often use in my sermons. One day, every sad thing is going to come untrue. So we're going to unpack, where's that from? What does it mean? Why do you say it? We're excited to do that.
Yeah. This is kind of a follow-up from last week's episode, to tie it with a neat bow of hope.
There you go.
Yeah.
A neat bow of hope. After you've been looking at your
Doomsday
countdown clock, your
Yeah.
doomsday clock for a while.
We should, maybe we should start giving doomsday watches out as a gift out of church.
Yeah, it would be a great gift to give to our visitors. But before we do that, we have our listener of the month. And we just want to say, shame on us. This podcast has been going on for 10, 15 years?
Yeah. We really do have almost 150 episodes.
We do have,
That's
not 10 or
no
15
joke.
years, but
Yeah.
we do have a lot of episodes. And actually, in fact, this is officially episode 144.
Is it really?
Yes.
Wow.
But this person probably should have been maybe the first listener of the month.
Yeah.
He was, before we hired you, he and I did a podcast that was like the starting idea of a podcast.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes, it was like his idea was, it was more along the lines of like background of the church and how we got planted or whatever. But he's been a faithful listener. A podcast was kind of his idea in the very, very beginning, the dawn of time. I think he was on one. Was he on the Kanye one?
He was.
Okay.
He and John Wood. And now I'm thinking, I don't know if John Wood's been a listener of the month either, and he should be.
Man, so if you've been wondering who it is by now, Tyler Linderman, you are the listener of the month. And our deepest apologies that it's taken this long, because you've been a good listener for 144 episodes.
Yeah, you've listened to every episode. You give us feedback.
Yeah.
There's a couple of life hacks I probably still need to use that he's given us. But yeah, he's been a faithful listener. And so we thank you, Tyler, for being a faithful listener and the patience you've shown in waiting for your turn to become listener of the month.
What a man. What a man. So we're going to talk about the phrase, every sad thing come untrue. So one of our members and listeners to the podcast wrote in the other week, and she said, I'd really love to hear more about this phrase that you use. And every time I hear it, I really think about it, and I'm not sure I fully understand what it means.
Yeah.
So
She probably needs to be a listener of the month too.
she does.
She runs our social media now, but I'm not going to say the name because we got to save it.
We got to wait for listener
next
of the
month.
Yeah. But this phrase comes from, of course, The Lord of the Rings. It comes from Return of the King after, Frodo and Samwise Gamgee have destroyed the Ring of Power, and they almost died. They've been rescued, and Samwise Gamgee wakes up, and the first person he sees is Gandalf. And if you've read the books or watched the movies, the last time Samwise Gamgee saw Gandalf, he was falling down the bridge of Khazad-dûm in the mines of Moria to his death. And
With the Balrog.
With the Balrog, yes, a great creature of the deep.
Yes.
So Sam has been living his life as though Gandalf were dead. And so he wakes up from his just about death. He sees Gandalf, and he said, Gandalf, I thought you were dead, but then I thought I was dead myself. Is everything sad going to come untrue? What's happened to the world? And so Sam basically sees the resurrection is really kind of what happens in his encounter with the resurrected Gandalf, so to speak. He recognizes that Gandalf's resurrection means something for the whole world. And it means some kind of turning backwards of all the bad that had worked. To quote C.S. Lewis talked about, I think with the resurrection of Aslan, that death itself started working backwards.
Yeah.
That's kind of Lewis's way to say what Tolkien is saying. Tim Keller picks up on this Tim Keller, the true and better Gandalf.
Although if he showed up here right now, I think we'd both freak out.
Yes, and maybe I would quote this to him. But he writes in the book Reason for God, Belief in an Age of Skepticism, he says, just after the climax of the trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, Samwise Gamgee discovers that his friend Gandalf was not dead, as he thought, but alive. He cries, which I just read, I thought you were dead, but then I thought I was dead myself. Is every sad thing going to come untrue? The answer of Christianity to that question is yes. Every sad thing is going to come untrue, and it will somehow be greater for having once been broken and lost. That second part of that sentence is incredible. It will somehow be greater for having once been broken and lost. So the idea really behind this also comes from Revelation 21:4, talking about the new heavens and the new earth, where it says God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And I heard one commentator say, it doesn't just say that there won't be crying. No more crying in heaven.
Yeah.
It says he'll wipe away every tear, which that's even a stronger statement than no crying. And so one of the amazing hopes of the Christian gospel is that even your suffering turns to glory.
Yeah.
And so some of the worst parts of your life, if you think about your life, even that makes heaven better for you.
Yeah.
Which is what he means by somehow it will be greater for having once been broken and lost. So there's literally nothing that can happen to you in this life that won't somehow contribute in a mystical and stunning way to make heaven even that much better for you.
Yeah.
That's what the phrase means.
And this idea of we want to think that joy is the absence of suffering in some ways.
Yeah.
But really what we see in the gospel is that what we will receive in the new heavens and new earth is not that our sufferings in the past never happened, but they are redeemed.
Sure.
And in a lot of ways, that's even better because it's a fantasy to believe that something that happened didn't happen, right? Mm-hmm. But suffering without hope is suffering for no reason.
Yeah.
But the suffering we experience here on earth as believers all has a purpose and will all be redeemed. Mm-hmm. And I think that is really hopeful.
For sure. So as we think about this phrase, I think we want to start by talking about the word sad,
right?
And then we want to finish by talking about the word untrue. So every sad thing comes untrue. It means there is sadness. And you were pointing out before we started recording that Christianity actually gives us an answer for why there are sad things.
Yeah.
And answering that correctly is actually really important to your ability to have hope in the middle of sad things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about this a lot, that a lot of people wonder why the solutions they've come up with for their lives don't work. And it's because they are applying them to the wrong questions.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is one of those things you see in our culture a lot, that we've talked a little bit about this on our podcast, but if you take out God, right, increasingly godless society isn't just that you have the absence of good and righteousness and holiness and morals, but you also lose the idea of sin.
Sure.
And when you lose the idea of sin, then you have no explanation for why things are broken. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, and so when people say this thing or that thing is Marxist, I want to know what that means. So
you're like, I'll listen.
Yeah, I'm like, tell me more.
Go on.
And as I've researched it, basically the Marxism comes down to the idea that the world is broken. Why is it broken? Because of the current system that is set up. And so what's the solution? Utopia is behind the broken system. Let's just tear down the current system
Right.
and find the utopia beneath.
Right.
But you can come to that conclusion if you take out sin. But if you enter sin into the world, you realize systems actually aren't the things that are broken. It's the people who run the systems, the sinners who have created sadness for all things. Now, of course, as we talk about sin, we talk about the different ways that sin has affected the world, and I guess we'll get to that in a second. But if you believe that the system, right? So a lot of people, for example, we talk about in Gen Z, a lot of people blame capitalism for some reason. Capitalism is the
Right.
problem. Well, yeah, if you think capitalism is the reason that there's problems in the world,
Sure.
then all you have to do is tear down capitalism,
Right.
and then there won't be any problems.
Yep.
But here's the thing: that's not true, because it doesn't matter what system you live in. There's evil in the world,
Sure.
right? And so, what's the hope for someone who doesn't believe in sin? The only hope is if the bad system is torn down and the right system is erected.
Right.
And so people now put their hope in politicians and, whatever laws and stuff can get passed.
Sure.
But for us as Christians, we don't have to look to those things for a hope. Now, we need to be people in our society that pray for, vote for, do the things that are good for our society.
Sure. You want to engage and
But we know that all sad things come untrue not by erecting a better system,
yeah.
but looking towards a better person,
Yeah.
Jesus.
That's good.
But yeah, with sin, I think sin. You talked about this in a sermon recently, and I think I've said a similar thing, that sin affects our lives in, I think you said 3 different ways, which is generally because
yeah.
sin is in the world,
Right.
things are just broken.
Yep.
Right. You have natural disasters. That's because sin
People
is
die of cancer. People. Yeah.
yeah, sin is in the world. You can be sinned against.
Yep.
Right? So someone can cuss you out, and someone sins against you, and you can feel brokenness in that way.
Yep.
But you can also sin against others, right?
Yeah.
You could receive the effects of sin both in a general sense, in a specific sense, or you could be the perpetrator of sin.
Sure.
And really, for all people, we've experienced all 3 of those things. But we would say, why are there sad things in this society? Because sin exists.
Yeah.
In our world.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think breaking down the quote, it's important to see where sad things come from before they can come untrue. You
Yeah.
got to know where they come from.
We need to know where to place our hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the untrue part. And this is also a large influence of Keller, Tim Keller, in my thinking. But he talks about how Christianity and the hope of the resurrection gives us a restoration, not just a consolation of all that we have lost.
Yeah.
And this is a really important distinction, because Christianity is actually probably the most materialistic religion in a sense. We often think of materialistic as like, I want a new car.
Right.
But I'm talking about the actual material world. So many other religions, Buddhism, it's almost like you are finally freed from the like almost illusion of suffering, and you're kind of like released.
Yeah, that's what the nirvana is.
Yeah, and Hinduism and nirvana and getting to moksha, I think is how you say it, is you're kind of, you spiritually become one with the universe, and you're freed from the cycle of reincarnation, and freed from the negative of karma and all this stuff.
And that's actually really popular in today's age too. That new age way of thinking is that whole, when people are like, like the universe has spoken. That's not just like a phrase people use. That's like rooted in new age thinking of the old religions of those things. Yeah.
So, but a lot of that is a consolation for all the suffering that you've experienced. Meaning, okay, you had this life and tough things happened to you, a lot of sad things happened, But if you were good enough or spiritual enough or you followed the laws enough, Islam, you know, you get to paradise. You get this spiritualized kind of, you know, it's the Hercules movie where the kind of gods up there are kind of the spirit-like form, and they're up on top of the mountain in the clouds.
Yeah.
You get that, you know, and your afterlife is good, and it's a consolation. But the difference with Christianity is it's a restoration. You get your body back. You get your world back.
Yeah.
But it's infinitely greater.
Yeah.
So, like,
I love the idea that as we are face to face with our Creator, right? As we are unified with Jesus, our bodies can't handle the glory of God. That's
Yes.
how great it's going to be.
you need
So
a resurrected body just to handle his glory.
Just to handle His glory.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that is so
Yeah.
like even if you are the most jacked, fit person out there,
You're not ready.
Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
even close.
Yeah.
Right? And we all need these new resurrected, glorious bodies so
Right.
that we could even handle being face to face with a glorious God.
Amen. Yeah. So if you think about, like, what is the greatest sorrow, the greatest sadness we experience on this earth? It's the death of a loved one, you know. And there's something so final about laying a loved one to rest. A lot of times people have an open casket. You see them for the last time. You close the casket and you put the casket on the ground. And there's like a finality of death that is unlike anything else you
Yeah.
experience, unlike any other kind of sadness. And in every other religion, that's it. Maybe you see that person in some spiritual form in the afterlife, or somehow you're also one with them. But in the good news of the gospel is, like, that body is literally getting up again.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be perfected.
Yeah.
And it's going to live forever. And so the person that you lost, that great sadness, that actually comes untrue in the gospel. And it's not just a consolation, it's a restoration. So everything, like your, you know, your favorite vacation place, you know, your favorite beach or your favorite mountain range that you lose through death, you unlose in the resurrection, and you get it infinitely better.
Yeah.
You know, Destin, Florida, or wherever you go, you know, it's gonna somehow in the new heavens and the new earth, something infinitely better than that is there.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing to ponder on that.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I think about my wife has a bone disorder, and something she says to me sometimes is just, I can't wait for my resurrected body, because it will be a body without that disorder, and her fingers and joints and all this stuff won't hurt anymore.
Right.
And I'm like, man, that's so hopeful.
Yeah.
Like, that it's not just like I'm going to be released from this pain, but I'm going to have this new body.
Yeah.
That is it's like the sad thing is untrue, and the true, actually glorious body I will have is the true thing.
Yes.
And the sad thing that I'm
Yes.
currently living is the untrue thing.
Yes.
That will be undone.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, what a hopeful thing.
It's so true.
You know, I can finally play basketball with her.
What is Joni Eareckson Tada? I don't want to be insensitive to get the term like quadriplegic. Is that
yes.
a correct term? I've heard her say the first thing she's going to do with her resurrected body is stand up and then get on her knees to bow before Jesus. You know,
What a cool
and you just think
picture,
of someone like that who it is like all the sad things related to her condition come untrue. But then not only that, we often harp on just kind of the physical realities, but the like spiritual reality of like sinning no more. Like so much sorrow in our lives are caused by, right, the general sin that you talked about before, and obviously that's erased with no disease, no sickness, no disability. But then my sin is a constant point of sorrow in my life as I'm continually not the person I know I should be, you know? And so we continue, like our whole life, part of our sorrow is, I did that again. I messed up there again.
Yeah.
I said that to that person again. And that's gone.
Yeah.
That's like, not only is it like fully forgiven for at the cross, you're not going to do those things anymore.
Yeah.
There are no more sin struggles to be had.
Yeah.
And that means you're also not going to be sinned against. Like
Yeah.
all the hurt we experienced by being sinned against, that's gone. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's we need to realize what the new heavens and new earth actually is going to be, because I think even for many Christians, we think about, you know, we did that series 3 years ago on, you know, an angel's got their wings or whatever. Right. But that's what we think it is, you know, we're playing harps or whatever. But it's like, no, it actually says we're going to be in the new earth.
Yeah.
A new physical reality.
Yeah.
And there's going to be work, and there's going to be, because, you know, work was instituted before the fall, and we're going to be worshiping God, but we're going to be living our lives. And now we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. But, you know, we were even joking beforehand, you know what a sad thing is when I eat Taco Bell? I got to go to the bathroom soon after that.
Yeah, you do.
But you know what?
New heavens,
you know
new
what? It
earth.
comes on true in the new earth. You know, new heavens, new earth. There might be Taco Bell, and you know what? I can eat it without having to go to the bathroom right after that. You know?
And we were laughing before, but I'm like, I actually don't think you're too far off with that joke. Like, I think there is something to that.
Yeah.
Like the new heavens and the new earth. It's not going to be. It's going to be both totally different than everything we know and very similar to everything we know.
Yeah.
And so, like, you can't prove it on Scripture, but I'm not convinced Taco Bell's not going to be there.
Yeah.
I am convinced your problems after Taco Bell are not going to be there. Yes. You know?
Yeah.
So I think, like, the new heavens and the new earth will be surprisingly different and surprisingly same somehow all at the same time.
It's like we're living in the broken version of the way it was supposed to be.
Yes.
And eventually we will live in the real version of how it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But because
even better.
But better, yes.
Because of redemption.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to think about. It's like, and one of my favorite thought experiments to do is because our minds are affected by sin and imperfect, we actually can't have a perfect thought about perfection.
Sure.
Like, our view of perfection is still tainted.
Yep.
So how good is it going to be? It's so much better than you can even dream. Because our best dreams of whatever, like, think about the best dream you could have about what a society, a body, whatever it could be. That view is still tainted by sin.
Yeah.
It's still broken.
Yep.
And so it will be so much better than what we can even imagine.
Yeah.
And like you said, and because of the brokenness experienced on this earth, and because the redemption of what Christ has given us, it will be even better than if it weren't broken at all.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing to think about. You know?
It's crazy. So, yeah, it's worth. I mean, this has just been edifying to me just to think through this. I think it's worth spending some, like, sanctified imagination on it, and just kind of dwelling on, you know, the reality to come. One of my biggest questions is, you know, if we have jobs, it feels like you and I will need, like, a new job training program.
We're like the only job that probably won't transfer to the new heavens.
But then I was thinking the other day, okay, well, maybe there would still be, like, worship services, you would think.
Yeah.
And maybe there would still be preaching, in a sense, that you're not calling people to repentance, but you're reminding them of the glory of God. And then I started thinking, okay, if that's the truth, then who gets to keep their pastoring job? Because I'm thinking, like, Spurgeon and D.L. Moody and, like, Billy Graham are like ahead of me on the list. So maybe there are some pastor preachers. I'm not sure I'm going to make the cut though. So like if there are, do we get to kind of keep our job, or do we have like a retraining program?
Honestly, I'd be cool with working at Taco Bell.
You finally get
I don't want to work at this broken, sinful Taco Bell that we all have here.
But the newer Taco Bell?
Yeah, I'd be glad to work there.
And then like Hillary's a counselor, so no one's going to have any problems. So that's out. So both of our jobs might be out, but there's no poverty in the new heavens and the new earth. So I guess we're good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's
a lot to think about.
Yeah, I don't know how to put all these things together.
But yeah, one day every sad thing's going to come untrue. Yeah. So that's the background of that, and hope you were edified by that reality.
Yeah, and I would just say, put your hope in something worth hoping in.
Well said.
Gosh, there's so much now in our society. It's just, we live in a fairly hopeless society, because even the people that have hope in things that are just shooting way too low.
Yeah.
Way too small.
Yep.
I mean, I feel like the picture we get in Revelation 21, this idea of the sad thing coming up true, that's a true hope.
Yep.
The hope of really being unified with Christ and everything being made whole again in the way it's supposed to be and better.
Yep.
Gosh, that's a real hope.
Amen.
So cling to that.
So set your hope in that. Thanks for listening to us for this Monday Musings. We will talk to you next week.